ate, came back, smashed out some team meetings, some stuff. And yes, it's what, 12:15, and we really kicked some goals. I love a day like this.
I love that too. So very good. So what are we talking about today, Kylie?
So I'm pumped for our topic today, Jenni. So we are going to be sharing 3 easy steps that can help you follow your financial goals. Now, we like to talk about goal setting, don't we, Jenni? So we like to talk about business goal setting, though. And I'm sure everybody in their own personal lives thinks of their own goal setting. It might be, well, at the gym, I want to achieve this thing by 3 months' time. Or it might be you're looking at weight loss goals, or it might be you're looking, like for me, ukulele, I want to be learning a new couple of chords every week. So we've all got different goals in our personal lives and in our business lives. Something I think we often skip out on is thinking about those financial goals. Then there's many different types. We've obviously got, every single business is different. So we'd all have different goals. However, we want to think about having the small ones, the medium-sized ones, and the big ones.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge that businesses have is particularly when you're new, you either have that kind of growth phase where it's just about when am I getting my money in, what do I need to cover? So your goals are really around cash flow, right? It's like, I just need to make sure that I'm getting enough revenue in to pay my bills and give me a wage and pay my staff and do what I need to do. So the goals become very transactional, but that doesn't really help you grow. That just helps you survive, right? And I think then as you move into a business and you want to start changing your mindset and go, okay, well, financial goals are around long-term success. And so once you get over that kind of fear of, am I going to be successful? Will people buy my product? Am I priced right? Do I know my target market? And all those other questions, it's time to kind of put on your big girl and boy pants and say, okay, what do we want to make from the business? What do we want to achieve in the business? And financial success is really create sustainability for the business. So it's so important to take some time to think about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I would say then out of those 3 goals that we want to work at or look at, number 1 would be clear and specific goals. So exactly what you just said, we're starting out in business, we're just treading water to try and figure out, can we even pay our bills? Or what do we need? Do we need to borrow money to pay those bills? So looking at properly sitting down on your CEO day, for example, and looking at, okay, what are those financial goals? I got to make them clear, and how can I make them super realistic? So an example of that could be, I want to pay myself $100 a week. That's my goal, is that by, I don't know, let's say by the end of the financial year, which is a bad example really, because that's in 2 days' time. Oh no, in a month, actually it's not. You know what? It gives us a month. So let's just say that by the end of the financial year, we want to actually be paying ourselves $100 a week. Then how are you going to get there? So that to me looks like a realistic goal, right? What do you reckon?
I think that's a good point. I think it's about, the key piece there is, it doesn't really matter about what the number is, it's that it's realistic. Right. So being mindful that we're not going to say, I'm going to, in the next 6 weeks, I'm going to start paying myself 10 grand a week, because that's my dream. My dream is $10,000 a week, but that's not realistic in 11 days unless you just did $1 million client. Right. And that's okay. Or 31 days. So I think that idea of having very clear and specific goals and having them being realistic, I think is really important, which to me kind of goes into that second tip, right? The first one, I've got to be clear and specific and time bound and have a date that you want to achieve them by, so that we can kind of work out what we need to do to get to that and reach that. And it looks at all the resources and the times we need to doing that. But the only way that they're going to be, that you're actually going to achieve them is that they are realistic given your current situation. And I think sometimes we think realistic is, well, I can make that much money, and you may be able to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in the time frame that you're putting against it, that's the question. And that's where realistic comes in. It's not about the value or the size of it. It's the fact that you're giving yourself or setting yourself up for success, right? To make sure that it's aligning with your business, the businesses you're operating now, that even your revenue that you're receiving is going to enable you to achieve those goals, that your expenses are realistic and not just, living in a bit of a fantasy land, which I know some business owners do because they get so excited about business. But taking a step back going, how much money am I earning? How much could I earn? What are my real expenses? And in knowing that, Can I pay myself $100 a week? That's the question. So having those kind of hard questions and being really realistic and open to what that might look like, I think is really important as a key point.
You're right. And maybe by the end of the financial year, it needs to be $50. Maybe $100 isn't achievable. So let's break it down and go, what is the short-term goal, the medium goal, and the large goal, or the big one? So let's go, okay, by this date, of course, it doesn't have to be in the financial year. It could be whatever date you want to set that short goal for. You can say, I want to be paying myself $50 a week, or as we said, whatever number that is. Then go, okay, by the end of the year or by the end of next year, I want to be, that needs to be 3,000 a week. And then in 5 years' time, it's got to be 20,000 a week. Whatever, pie in the sky numbers there, but you know what I mean? So setting those goals of how it's going to happen. But then, of course, how are you actually going to get there? What's the plan to get you to that 20,000 a week or a month or a year or whatever it is that you're looking at? So then, of course, that means looking at your pricing, it means looking at what you're charging, what are your costs involved in the business, etc. So it's a big one. So yeah, realistic is so important.
And I think with realistic also is this, even though we're talking about just financial goal success, people say, yeah, this is what I want my business to be. And that's awesome. You and I have talked about, what's your enough figure, or what's your kind of big figure that you're looking for. And that's a really great conversation to have. But by asking yourself, what are my financial goals for the business? What it actually invites you to do is to start looking at all those different aspects of the business. If I said to you, we're going to have a pricing conversation to check your pricing, you're like, I don't want to do that. But if you know that is connected with getting your financial success, suddenly I might be interested to see if my prices are okay. And so the question, it begs a whole lot of other questions that you're probably ignoring, but that you need to ask in order to get that financial success. So this one little task about creating a SMART goal or set clear and specific goals around what you want to achieve, making sure they're realistic, is actually financial planning for your business, but from a very basic level, from a very transparent level, and actually a level that connects you with your goals. And that's so critical.
Absolutely. So our second top tip or thing that you need to do for making sure that you reach those financial goals is all about budgeting, and also the word we're putting in the words, be realistic there as well. So what would you like to share around that one, Jenni?
I think it's also, so we talk about budgeting in this kind of, it always has a negative context. So whether you're saver or budgeting or putting what you need to put aside, knowing what's going to work for you is really important. So once you understand those kind of what we're doing and how we're doing, what my expenses are, is my revenue in, when you're looking at your budget, goes back to that realistic piece is, can I actually afford for the business to put that aside and still be able to operate? So, the reality is if you're doing well in the business, you might be able to pull out $100 or $50 or $5,000 a week of your business, but is that sustainable? So is that budget for 1 month? Or is that going to blow your budget for the year? And that's where that's looking at what can the business afford for the whole year. That's how you can establish whether your goal is aligned with the overall delivery and the expectations of the business and the budget. Or is it something that, again, you're kind of saying, well, I can do it, but I haven't really considered it in the context of everything else that's going on.
Now, you're right. And what happens though, Jenni, when a shiny object comes glaring at you and says, I really need to buy that course, or I really need to, just dive into a different market, or I've got to come up with a new product, or whatever it is that you haven't budgeted for and that it's not as part of your goals. Can you find a way to actually make it work? Because, some things are very shiny and they're irresistible.
I think that leads into our third point about regular reviews, right? I think that's the third key, is that, yes, of course, things are going to come up. Shiny things will always come up, particularly in business. And they might be shiny things that the business really needs, or they might be shiny things that you as the business owner deserve because of all the hard work you've put in. And so you want to spend that. And that's okay. Both of those situations are great. But that's where regular reviews are really important to say, again, going back to the point, is my time frame still okay? Is my budget still realistic? Is it still something that we can achieve? And sometimes you can actually change the goalposts a little bit in that space. So reviews are not about saying, it's almost like a bit of accountability, really. It's about asking yourself, is this budget, is this a goal still realistic? If it is, then great, let's keep going. But if those shiny things have come up and the goalposts have shifted, maybe it's a time to say, well, actually, we now need to add a month for this. Or if we're going to buy this shiny thing, we need to reallocate something from over here so that we can still stay on track. And it makes you ask the question, how important is the time frame or the achievement of the actual outcome? Because they're different, right? The goal is, you said the goal is $100 a week. Does it matter whether it happens on the 30th of June or the 30th of August? What difference is that going to make to you? So how fixed are you to the timeline, or how fixed are you to the outcome that you're trying to achieve? And sometimes they don't have to be the same. You can still be successful and achieve a goal. The time frame just might be 1 or 2 days or a week or a month later than you expected. And when we're talking those big goals that you mentioned earlier, you're talking like a 5-year goal or a 3-year goal. 1 month is not going to make that big a difference in the big scheme of things, because what you might lose in time now, you might gain back in a year's time, remember, because we're talking big things. So don't worry about those little shifts. And that's that kind of regular reviews allows you to kind of have a look at that. But it's important to kind of consider the different types of reviews we might need, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I really like the analogy of the football field and the goal posts. So when you think about, and, a lot of people get really, really set, right? And they're like, I have to have done it by this time. It's like even when we look at digital marketing, how many times we're posting a week, and they'll beat themselves up if they didn't get their Friday post out or something. I'm like, it's actually okay. Overall, what is the big goal for that? Is it that that you're trying to, is it kind of the wrong goal, which is actually having this many posts out per day or per week or whatever, when it's actually, what am I trying to achieve with getting those posts out? So if we think about that footy field and the goal posts, it's actually okay, not in footy, it's not, but in our world it is, to shift those goal posts a little bit. Yeah. And you're dead right. It's about the financial outcome or the time frame outcome, whichever it is. Can those be shifted just so that you can squeeze that extra thing in? So that upskill time, for me in my business, I've got to be constantly investing in upskilling, because my goalposts are shifting all the time, because digital marketing changes all the time. If I didn't invest in upskilling, then where would I be?
Yeah.
So I've got to be accounting for those little shiny objects that are going to come along.
100%. And we look at those short-term goals. So something, if it's a short-term goal, so let's say we want to make this change to our revenue or to our personal income in 5 weeks, right? That can be possible because you may not have thought about it. You may not have paid yourself for the last year. And we talk, that's a different podcast. But if you're talking around, I want to pay myself $100 a week, then the conversation is, okay, I've got 5 weeks. What do I need to do? I need to check in on that goal every single week to make sure I'm going to be able to achieve that. That's a short-term, really quick win, right? But then if you've got like those midterm goals, and depending on how you think, some people say that's up to 3 years. For some people, that might actually be just between 6 months and a year might be a midterm goal for them. And so within that, then you have to say, well, how often do I need to review in that case? And what can slip? So being aware of what might be able to slip, the old analogy of robbing Peter to pay Paul, what are you doing to slip to make that work in the big scheme of things? Because remember, those steps towards the goal are just steps. You can change the steps you do as long as the outcome's the same, right? So don't worry if the steps change, right? And then the long-term goals, those 5 years or 3+ year goals, which are the big financial goals, there's always going to be shifts. There's going to be pivots. We did this. We talked about this way back when with COVID, and when we had to pivot from going face-to-face workshops to an online program. That compressed your goals of shifting your program to being an online coach, an online digital marketing coach. You were mostly face-to-face live, and your long-term goal for your business was to go online. And that compressed that goal and actually forced you to achieve it sooner. So that's where I think having that flexibility, whether you're doing goal setting with your financial planning, it's about what are you trying to achieve, right? What's the long-term outcome, not whether you ticked all the boxes along the way.
You're right. And I think what it boils the whole thing down to is back to one of our favorite things, CEO Day. And so none of this can be achieved unless you actually stop for a moment, step back from being in the mud of your business, and actually take a good hard look at what is going on. So remember about whether it's a day a week, half a day a week, a day a month, whatever it is, you need to schedule it so that you have that time to be working on your business, not just in your business.
100%, because ultimately financial success and business success requires you to be looking and deep diving into the business, and you can't do that if you don't have that space, and if you're not actually creating the space for you to do that and having conversations with your mentors and your coaches and colleagues that make you go, okay, I've got to be accountable for this. You don't get that if you're head down, bum up all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Sometimes it's too much to do it on your own. So working that through with a coach or a mentor is a really great idea. So exactly. On that note, Jenni, actually, let's just quickly summarize. So our 3 top tips are, number 1, set those clear and specific goals. Number 2, budget and be really realistic. And number 3 is schedule that review of your goals, whether they're the small ones, the medium, the long term. Set that topic in your CEO day and make that happen. So on that note, Jenni, how does everyone get in touch with you so they can chat about their goals?
So you can chat with me about my goals at elephantintheroomaau.com is our webpage. Otherwise, you can find us on socials at at Elephant in the Room AU. Oh my goodness, at Elephant in the Room AU on our socials. And what about you, Kylie?
HelloMedia.team for us. So website and socials. So also come and join the Hello Media Facebook group. I've been sharing lots of updates in there. There's constant changes, and everybody who's doing the marketing in their own business, which of course needs to be everyone. Also those that are marketers, there's just so much information that is changing literally daily. So jump on in that Facebook group and skill up, find out what's going on.
And of course, if you want to keep tuning into our bite-sized episodes, make sure that you subscribe and follow us so you don't miss anything in the future. Thank you so very much for listening to us, Kylie. It's great to see you again. And we look forward to seeing everyone next time. Have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye, everyone.